In the series premiere of Mobland, a gritty British crime drama on Paramount+, we're thrust into London's criminal underworld, where two rival crime families, the Harrigans and the Stevensons, are locked in a tense power struggle. The episode, titled Stick or Twist, centers on Harry D'Souza, Tom Hardy, the Harrigan street-smart fixer, who's tasked with cleaning up messes and navigating escalating tensions. Harry mediating a peace deal between two warring gangs, the Dogans and Lazaros, in a London restaurant. Though he gets them to shake hands, their refusal to apologize leads to a brutal resolution. Harry, under orders from Harrigan patriarch Conrad, Pierce Brosnan, kills both groups to eliminate the problem. This sets the tone for the Harrigans' ruthless approach to maintaining control. Meanwhile, a new conflict brews when Eddie Harrigan, Anson Boone, the reckless grandson of Conrad and Mave Heragan, Helen Mirren, goes clubbing with Tommy Stevenson, Felix Edwards, the son of rival boss Richie Stevenson, Jeff Bell. Their night takes a violent turn when a cocaine-fueled Eddie stabs a man, Huey, in a Mayfair pub, forcing them to flee. Eddie discards the knife in the Thames, but Tommy, spooked by Eddie's volatility, vanishes after their encounter by the river. The next morning, Richie grows alarmed when Tommy doesn't return home, while Kevin Harrigan, Paddy Considine, Eddie's father, informs Harry of Eddie's bloodied state. Harry jumps into damage control, securing CCTV footage from the pub to protect Eddie and ensuring the stabbed victim, Huey, stays silent. At the Harrigan estate, Conrad plans to expand their empire into the fentanyl trade, currently controlled by the Stevensons, which heightens tensions. During a family meeting with Conrad, Mave, their children Brendan, Kevin, and Serafina, lawyer O'Hara, and Conrad's old friend Archie, suspicions arise about a traitor. Mave suspects Archie is working with the Stevensons, especially after he opposes Conrad's fentanyl plan. Her suspicions are confirmed when Archie tries to steer Conrad away from the trade. In a shocking twist, Conrad kills Archie, believing him to be a traitor, and Harry is called to dispose of the body. As Harry D'Souza copes with the consequences of the Harrigan family's actions, the tension in episode 2 increases. This opens with Harry and his team Zosia, cleaning up after Conrad Harrigan kills his childhood friend Archie, suspected of betraying the family to the rival Stevensons, as urged by Mave Harrigan, Helen Mirren. The act shakes Conrad, but Mave defends it by saying it's essential to their goals in the fentanyl trade. In an attempt to get information regarding his missing son Tommy, who was last seen with Kevin Harrigan's son Eddie, Richie Stevenson confronts Kevin Harrigan. Before attacking Eddie, Richie gives Kevin an hour's notice, so Kevin sends Eddie to the family's Cotswolds estate for protection. A high-speed chase ensues as Richie's men pursue Eddie, but Zosia and Kiko fend them off. Harry, under pressure to prevent a gang war, tracks down two of Eddie's friends, Alfie and Mink, who reveal Eddie knew the nightclub manager, Valjean. Harry returns to the club, brutally interrogating Valjean, who admits to dismembering Tommy's body and leads Harry to a trunk containing Tommy's dismembered remains, confirming his death. The episode ends with this gruesome discovery, leaving Tommy's killer unclear. Suspicions point to Eddie, Valjean, or even Mave, who may be orchestrating chaos for her own gain. Harry's personal life also frays, as his wife Jan demands a divorce after he misses therapy, and a suggestive encounter with Kevin's wife, Bella, hints at past infidelity. The episode blends intense action, family dynamics, and looming betrayal, setting the stage for an impending war. In Mobland Season 1, Episode 3, titled Plan B, the conflict between the Harrigan and Stevenson crime families escalates. The episode opens with Richie Stevenson blowing up Kevin Harrigan's house, signaling his impatience over his missing son, Tommy, whose dismembered body was discovered by Harry D'Souza in Episode 2. Harry, the Harrigan's fixer, devises a risky plan to pin Tommy's murder on club owner Valjean to avoid an all-out war. He and Kevin interrogate Valjean, using a mock execution to coerce him into taking the blame, though the plan's success is uncertain. Meanwhile, Bella Harrigan secretly schemes with her father and a Frenchman, Antoine, who records a meeting to blackmail her father, entangling Bella in a dangerous side plot. Harry also relocates his family to a houseboat for safety and helps his cleaner, Maria, secure a nursing home spot for her mother, where he encounters a former abusive guard from his youth, hinting at his troubled past. Tensions within the Harrigan family rise, with Mave pushing for aggressive moves against the Stevensons, while Conrad defers to her. As the episode comes to a close, police detectives Fisk and Mikasa get an anonymous information regarding the whereabouts of Archie Hammond's body, which Conrad killed in episode 1 and which points to a traitor in the inner circle of the Harrigans. The episode blends intense drama, dark humor, and complex character dynamics, setting the stage for further betrayal and conflict. The conflict between the Harrigan and Stevenson crime families escalates in Mobland Season 1, Episode 4, Rat Trap, as Tom Hardy's character Harry D'Souza navigates a web of betrayal and distrust. The episode begins with Harry threatening Bella's dishonest customer, Antoine, in order to obtain incriminating memory sticks. Meanwhile, since only Conrad and Harry were aware of the location of Archie Hammond's body, which was killed by Conrad Harrigan, Pierce Brosnan, in Episode 1, suspicions of a mole are raised. Conrad threatens Joanne Froggatt, Harry's wife, to her house and demands that she keep quiet about the Harrigans. Harry works to maintain his ruse that club owner Valjean killed Tommy Stevenson, brutally stabbing him with a cinder block shard under Richie Stevenson's, Jeff Bell, orders to prove loyalty. Richie, seemingly convinced, demands the Harrigans attend Tommy's funeral, hinting at a potential trap. A major revelation confirms Mave Harrigan, Helen Mirren, orchestrated Tommy's murder, manipulating her grandson Eddie, Anson Boone, to carry it out, solidifying her as the cunning mastermind behind the family's moves. In another scene, Kevin Harrigan, played by Paddy Considine, tells Harry about his traumatic past and explains why he previously denied it. Rusby, a prison guard, sexually assaulted him while they were in a juvenile detention center. Unaware that Alice is an undercover operative sowing doubt, Jan confides in her friend Alice about her frustration with Harry's devotion to the Harrigans. The F's funeral. In Funeral for a Friend, the 5th episode of Mobland Season 1, the Harrigan family finds itself in a difficult situation as they go to the funeral of Tommy Stevenson, who was murdered by Eddie Harrigan in Episode 1. Harry D'Souza and Kevin Harrigan begin the show by talking about how they believe Richie Stevenson is setting up a trap by forcing the Harrigans to attend Tommy's wake and funeral at the Stevenson residence. Harry contends that Richie's public invitation implies theatrics rather than violence, with the intention of humiliating the Harrigans by demonstrating that he is aware that Eddie killed Tommy, even though Conrad Harrigan invites a council of war in the Cotswolds despite the dangers. Tensions in their marriage are shown when Jan, Harry's wife, first objects to going but eventually consents after finding out Bella is going. The atmosphere during the burial is strained, with Conrad urging restraint and Mave Harrigan delighting in the splendor of the occasion. Bella's confidence in Harry makes Kevin feel less secure, which exacerbates his uneasiness as he struggles with past trauma from sexual abuse at the hands of jail officer Rusby. As a precaution, Harry makes sure that weapons are smuggled into the Stevenson home through Freddie, a Stevenson associate. Richie demands that Eddie take off his sunglasses so that he can face him and confess to killing Tommy, but Eddie refuses, which further strengthens Richie's suspicions. Despite Richie's sadness and desire for revenge, he makes a bargain to Conrad to prevent war, as warfare would undermine both families' interests. However, at the startling end of the episode, Mave, who has been manipulating events to fuel turmoil, goes rogue and plans the bombing of Richie's wife, Vron, destroying all hope of peace and starting the war she has been advocating. Subplots include Bella's clandestine activities, Jan's tense relationship with Harry, which is exacerbated by her friendship with undercover informant Alice, and Brendan and Serafina banding together for a new plan. The episode, hailed for its dramatic drama and Jeff Bell's exceptional performance as Richie, deepens the Harrigan-Stevenson dispute, with Mave's actions setting the stage for greater violence. In All-Out War, the 6th episode of Mobland Season 1, the aftermath of Mave Harrigan's bombing of Ron Stevenson in Episode 5 sets off a full-scale battle between the Stevenson and Harrigan criminal families. Richie Stevenson, furious at his wife's passing, declares open war on Harrigan activities around London as the episode begins, leaving the Harrigans in shock from the attack. As Conrad fights to contain Mave's wild ambition, Harry D'Souza, who has been assigned with damage control, attempts to save the family's assets while managing Conrad's waning authority. Unrepentant, Mave intensifies her scheme to unsettle the Stevensons in the hopes of solidifying the Harrigans' power. A significant narrative concerns Kevin Harrigan, whose trauma from prior abuse by prison officer Rusby resurfaces, pushing him to confront his abuser in a violent encounter that leaves him further unmoored. Meanwhile, Eddie Harrigan, guilt-ridden by his role in Tommy's death, falls under the burden of the mounting war. When Harry finds proof that Jan's friend Alice is an undercover spy providing investigators Fisk and Mikasa with information, he is forced to question Jan about her devotion, further straining their marriage. As she manipulates both sides to establish her own power base, Bella's covert plans get more complex, suggesting a more significant betrayal. In the episode's conclusion, Stevenson's men launch a vicious ambush on a Harrigan safehouse, resulting in heavy casualties and Harry's narrow escape. Conrad learns of Mave's schemes and starts to doubt her devotion, which could lead to a power struggle. Subplots include the police catching up to the Harrigans through Alice's intelligence and Brendan and Serafina's plan gaining momentum. Harry's loyalty and Maeve's ambition propel the story toward a chaotic conclusion in all-out war, which offers thrilling action, character-driven drama, and a cliffhanger that puts the Harrigan Empire in jeopardy. The Harrigan-Stevenson conflict erupts but the war reaches a nuclear level due to Brendan's death. Mave told Richie about the Antwerp transaction, but Richie betrayed her, exposing her error. She thought she could use Richie to save Brendan, but he double-crosses her, revealing he's a step ahead. Maeve's risky game. The drama in this episode revolves around Helen Mirren's character, Mave Harrigan. She purposefully sacrificed Serafina, Conrad's illegitimate daughter, in order to protect Brendan by telling Richie where she and Serafina were in episode 6. Her Queen's Gambit, as she refers to it, backfires catastrophically. When Brendan is slain, Richie's plot falls apart. She utilizes her intelligence to capture both siblings. Maeve's cunning is clearly visible, she manipulates from the shadows and even pretends to cry to avoid raising Conrad and Kevin's suspicions. However, her arrogance proves to be her undoing as Richie outwits her. Reddit users adored the scene where Mave promises in Mobland Season 1, Episode 8, Helter Skelter, Brendan, Daniel Betts, is dead, Serafina, Mandeep Dhillon, is back at the Cotswolds, Conrad, Pierce Brosnan, still smells a rat, and we head towards an end to this 10-episode season with many of the questions laid out in Episode 1 still unanswered, or worse, totally forgotten about. Due to the limited amount of time left in Mobland, threads will need to begin wrapping up in one way or another, and satisfaction is no longer assured. The Harrigans temporarily reassemble when Harry uses the enigmatic Cat McAllister to save Serafina Harrigan at the last minute. Conrad, however, makes an instant effort to turn Brendan's murder into a financial opportunity. Jamie Lopez's treachery of Richie makes it possible for Jamie and Conrad to gain control of fentanyl in London. But Harry loses another favor to Cat as a result. In the meantime, a seasoned participant in London's never-ending gangland conflict, former Scotland Yard Deputy Chief Inspector Colin Tattersall, portrayed by the great Toby Jones, gave Richie his own chance. Tattersall advises DS Fisk and DC Mikasa on how to go after Conrad Harrigan, telling them that, based on his decades of experience, the best way to take down a criminal organization is to form an alliance with their rival, which leads to a confrontation with Richie Stevenson himself and one of the most unexpected turns yet in Mobland. Richie shoots and kills both of them, making sure that the last thing they hear is that, no one owns Richie Stevenson. While they certainly didn't help their own cause by insolently insinuating that Richie would be owned by the police, effectively making him a grass, the true reason for their murder is deeper. Fisk quickly agrees to this after a defiant Mikasa spits out that Richie would never own them, mainly to avoid appearing weak. Colin Tattersall makes it apparent directly after the deaths of Fisk and Mikasa that he knows his involvement in an arrangement with Richie. He and Richie go, all the way back to 75, and while he claims to have thrown Richie away twice already, it seems as though Tattersall might have been far warmer to Richie than a proper police inspector should be to a murdering crime boss. Conrad's main opponent now has the support and resources of the London police, as well as the freedom to act, as Tattersall is supposedly taking charge of the investigation and dealing with Richie. The betrayal and deceit reached a fever pitch in the penultimate episode of the first season of Ronan Bennett's Mobland, which might be the beginning of the end of the Harrigan crime empire. Conrad confronted cartel lord Jamie Lopez, fulfilling Harry's second favor to the enigmatic and powerful Cat McAllister, naturally, the Harrigan patriarch irritated him in typical Conrad fashion. As things stand, a deal might still go through, but only if Harry can get rid of the rat in the Harrigan family. Kevin was noticeably missing from the negotiations, as he was finally able to face his former jailer and tormentor, Rusby. His wife also slipped out of the Harrigan manor to pursue her own nefarious schemes, and finally, Jan's friend Alice, the informant who now works for Colin Tattersall following the deaths of Fisk and Mikasa at the end of episode 8, arrived at the manor to join Conrad for dinner. Instead of using a wire to send Alice inside Conrad's manor, Tattersall placed a listening device in her phone, which was much more dangerous for her health because of how readily it might be found. In the short time she was there, she never received a complete admission of guilt or confirmation of any criminal behavior, but that was never her real objective. In order to aid in their conviction, she was there to extract DNA from Conrad, Mave, or both if at all feasible. It was suspicion of murder that led to their arrest. The authorities did not yet have hard proof. The conflict between the Stevensons and the Harrigans ended abruptly and violently in the season finale of Ronan Bennett's Mobland, and the main players in the Harrigan criminal organization entered a larger and more perilous world. Harry de Souza finally put a stop to the fight with the Stevensons after Conrad and Mave were imprisoned. The identity of the rat that had been providing Richie with intelligence for months was one of the many mysteries surrounding the inner circle of the Harrigans that were resolved en route to the dramatic denouement. Harry used Richie's trust in the Harrigans' own lawyer, O'Hara Delaney, to set the South London crime boss and all his soldiers up, enabling Harry, Kevin, Paul, Zosia, and Kiko to take them all out in simultaneous ambushes. Elsewhere, Kevin makes his claim to the throne of the Harrigan criminal empire, refocused by the exorcism of his longtime tormentor, the prison guard Alan Rusby. After confirming that Eddie was in fact Conrad's son with his wife, Bella, Kevin completely disowned Eddie, designating him Conrad's problem and not his. Even though the battle with the Stevensons was resolved and many of the secrets of Mobland's first season were resolved, the finale did a lot to set up an unconfirmed second season. In contrast to the London-based areas they shared with the Stevensons, the events of Season 1 unintentionally drew the Harrigans into a far bigger criminal underworld. The members of the Harrigan crime organization, as well as the next group of adversaries whose anger has been aroused, have a lot of stories to tell in the next stage of their development. Conrad leaves his prison cell at the very end of the episode, flanked by the other inmates. They greet him with acclaim and cheers, which Conrad takes full advantage of since, as has been said multiple times, he is primarily concerned with maintaining his own reputation. Formerly the most feared crime lord in London, Conrad, 100 guns, Harrigan certainly gained the respect and admiration of criminals throughout the city. Conrad, who is now incarcerated alongside the others, is praised for his decades of notorious evil,